In an extraordinary mountain expedition, where the intensity of nature and human courage come together, Peter and his family become victims of a tragic accident. Their lives change from that day, but sometime later, they face a new challenge on another mountain, where the story of family bonds, grief, and self-sacrifice unfolds. The story begins with a breathtaking view of an eagle gracefully soaring through the stunning Monument Valley in the United States. In this beautiful setting, we meet Peter, a passionate photographer who is climbing a mountain alongside his family. His team includes his adventurous sister, Annie, and their caring father. As they ascend, Peter and Annie fill the air with laughter, singing songs and trying to guess their titles, artists, and the years they were released. Their father, however, is focused on teaching Annie about the importance of climbing safety. Suddenly, disaster strikes. A group of inexperienced climbers above them loses their footing and falls, dragging Peter's family down the mountain face with them. In a moment of panic, Annie's camera is the only thing keeping them from falling completely. Realizing that the camera cannot support all of them, their father makes a heart-wrenching decision. He tells Peter to cut the rope, sacrificing himself to save his children. Despite their desperate arguments, Peter reluctantly follows his father's command, and they watch in horror as his father falls to the ground below. Fast forward 3 years later, and we find Peter in the lower Himalayas, capturing stunning photographs of big cats playfully fighting in the snow. While trekking through the rugged terrain, his porter becomes distracted by a rumble of thunder and trips, injuring his leg on a sharp rock. A helicopter arrives to take the porter away, and the pilot informs Peter that Annie has been in the area for a week, leading a documentary crew up the mountain. This crew is working for Elliot Vaughn. When Peter arrives at the base camp, he sees a bustling scene filled with tents and climbers. He finds Annie, who is surprised but happy to see him. She shares that her team plans to leave for their climb the next day. Peter, concerned about Vaughn's intentions, questions Annie about him. Meanwhile, we meet two brothers, Malcolm and Cyril, who are amusingly sitting naked in the snow, enjoying drinks while helicopters buzz overhead, bringing in Vaughn and his team. Vaughn is greeted warmly by Frank, a seasoned climber who has successfully scaled the mountain 5 times. Peter searches for the base commander, Skip, but instead encounters Monique, the base camp manager and medic, who is busy sorting through letters and appears quite frustrated. She directs Peter outside, where he finally meets Skip. Skip explains that Vaughn is racing against time to reach the summit because he wants to be at the top of K2 when his new airline, Majestic Air, makes its inaugural flight overhead. Skip is feeling the pressure, as he is responsible for guiding the producer up the mountain. That night, a lively party takes place at the base camp. Vaughn takes the stage to share his ambitious plans and introduces his guide, Tom McLaren. However, the festivities are interrupted by an old man who warns everyone about the dangerous weather conditions on the mountain. Vaughn, confident in Tom's skills, dismisses the warning, and the party continues. The next day, we see the old man, Montgomery Wick, making his way up the mountain alone. When Peter enters Annie's tent, they discuss Wick, who is known for reaching the summit in just 24 hours. We learn that after their father's tragic death, Peter has not climbed again or visited his grave, while Annie continues to climb to feel a connection to him. Vaughn and his team take off in a helicopter, accompanied by Tom and a porter named Ali, who bids farewell to his brother, Kareem. Annie departs in a second helicopter, and Peter helps Skip load a third helicopter, where Skip reassures him that Annie will be safe. As Vaughn and his team begin their climb, Tom grows increasingly anxious as he notices the weather deteriorating. Despite Tom's concerns and Annie's agreement to turn back, Vaughn insists on pushing forward. Meanwhile, Frank, stationed at the monitoring station, realizes the weather is worsening and tries to convince Tom to retreat. However, Vaughn remains adamant about continuing the climb. Soon, the weather takes a turn for the worse, and Annie slips into a crevice, pulling the rest of the team with her. Tom heroically uses his ice axe to stop their fall, and while everyone is shaken, they are unharmed. But then disaster strikes again. A massive avalanche roars down the mountain. Vaughn and Annie are swept into the crevice, and as the snow crashes down, Tom jumps in after them. Tragically, the rest of the team is caught in the avalanche and perishes, while Vaughn, Annie, and Tom find themselves trapped in a snow-covered cave. Tom is seriously injured, and their radios struggle to get a signal. In a moment of inspiration, Peter remembers the Morse code his father taught them as children. He quickly explains the situation to the people at base camp, and they cheer for the survivors. However, Kareem is heartbroken, as he realizes that his brother Ali is likely among the dead. Peter proposes forming a rescue team, but his idea is met with skepticism. Skip explains that attempting a rescue is extremely dangerous, as they only have a 36-hour window to save the trapped climbers. Peter recalls that Montgomery Wick once made it to the summit in just 24 hours, and they decide to seek his help. They approach Colonel Salim, who reluctantly agrees to let them take a case of highly explosive nitroglycerin up the mountain to aid in the rescue. He warns them that this action is unauthorized by the Pakistani government and leaves them to their mission. Just as Skip is about to take a canister, Major Rasul notices that one has leaked onto Skip's boot. They quickly remove the boot and throw it far away, where it explodes upon hitting the ground. Meanwhile, Peter addresses the crowd at base camp, seeking 4 more climbers to join him and Skip on the rescue mission. Kareem, Malcolm, and Cyril step forward to help. Back up the mountain, Tom's condition worsens, and Vaughn lays out a survival plan, detailing when they should drink water and administer a medication called Dex. Their last known coordinates are sent to the rescue team, and as Skip and Peter strategize, they realize they need Wick's expertise. Wick had been part of a rescue team 4 years ago, but tragically, his wife was among those lost, and he has been searching for her body ever since. The 5 climbers begin their challenging journey, each carrying a container of nitroglycerin, a highly explosive substance they hope will aid in their rescue mission. As they board the helicopter, they are joined by Monique, the base camp manager, who is eager to assist with the mission. During the flight, Annie and Vaughn discuss Tom's worsening health. Tom is in dire need of medical help, but the journey to rescue him is dangerous. Vaughn accidentally drops some supplies, but as they fly, he spots a backpack at the bottom of a deep crevice. The helicopter lands near the tent of Montgomery Wick, a skilled climber, but Wick refuses to join the team. However, when Skip offers a reward of $500,000 to anyone willing to help, Wick changes his mind. He agrees to come along, but insists that Skip return to base camp, needing someone trustworthy there. After some hesitation, Skip agrees, and the team splits into 3 pairs to tackle the mountain from different routes. The helicopter ascends as high as possible, but the weather soon worsens, forcing the team to jump out. Peter and Wick are the last to exit, but the helicopter faces engine trouble, and they nearly fall. Wick quickly saves Peter from slipping, and everyone manages to jump to safety as the helicopter departs. Once on the mountain, Tom's condition rapidly declines. Annie wants to give him Dex, a life-saving drug, but Vaughn insists they stick to their schedule, believing Tom is too far gone. Annie argues that Vaughn should tell Tom the truth, but Tom thinks Vaughn is giving up on him. Vaughn, however, insists that if he doesn't act quickly, both Tom and Annie will die. Meanwhile, Malcolm and Kareem climb a separate path. Kareem stops to pray, but Malcolm mocks him, showing little faith in his brother's devotion. Back at base camp, Skip radios Wick, telling him that they have 48 hours of good weather ahead. Wick, who is climbing with Peter, urges him to move faster. They have a brief argument, and Wick nearly threatens to leave Peter behind. But when Peter slips, Wick manages to catch him in time and reassures him that he made the right decision by cutting the rope to save his sister. Their bond grows stronger as they continue climbing. Vaughn notices that Annie is showing signs of bleeding and swelling, which are serious symptoms. He orders Wick to inform Peter about Annie's condition to make him move faster. Tom again argues that Annie needs Dex, but Vaughn refuses, sticking to the schedule. Annie suggests that if they want to survive, they need to retrieve the backpack Vaughn had spotted earlier. Meanwhile, Monique and Cyril are climbing together. Cyril slips on the snow, but uses his ice axe to stop himself from falling off a steep cliff. Monique quickly comes to help, but the cliff begins to break away. In a quick thinking moment, Monique uses a rope to hook Cyril's axe, saving them both. She swings to give Cyril a chance to reach a ledge, and after several attempts, he makes it to safety. However, during the struggle, a container of nitroglycerin falls from Cyril's pack. As they try to climb back up, the nitroglycerin explodes upon hitting the ground, triggering a massive landslide. Inside the cave where Annie, Vaughn, and Tom are, the explosion causes Annie to lose her balance. But Vaughn catches her. Monique calls for Cyril, who appears at the top of the cliff. He has climbed to safety, but soon after, another explosion triggers an avalanche, and Cyril is swept off the cliff to his tragic death. Peter wants to go back to help Cyril, but Wick believes it is already too late. However, Annie proves resourceful. She retrieves the backpack, which belongs to Kareem's brother Ali, and finds the Dex inside. She administers it to both herself and Tom, despite Vaughn's disapproval. Monique continues climbing the cliff and reunites with Peter, who helps set her broken finger. Malcolm, still struggling with the loss of his brother, chooses to keep climbing despite his grief. At T-base camp, a dangerous situation arises when nitroglycerin is left in the sunlight, causing it to explode and kill Colonel Salim. Skip quickly radios the team with the tragic news. Peter's group moves the remaining nitroglycerin into the shade, but Monique's radio attempt to contact Malcolm fails because their communication is turned off. Peter decides to search for them, and they eventually reconnect. In their rush to protect the nitroglycerin, they don't notice a crack in one of the containers. The nitroglycerin leaks out, and as it enters the sunlight, another explosion causes yet another avalanche. Amid the chaos, a body is uncovered in the snow. It is Wick's wife. Wick reveals that she was part of Vaughn's previous team. When he discovers that her deck supply is missing, he realizes that Vaughn must have stolen it, leading to her death. This revelation fills Wick with a desire for revenge. That night, Annie radios Peter, telling him that there's no hope left and suggesting he should return. They share a heartfelt moment while Monique listens in quietly. Later, as Annie rests, Vaughn injects himself with Dex and then makes a shocking decision. He murders Tom. The next morning, Wick is ready to leave but finds that Peter and Monique have already left without him. Annie soon discovers that Tom is dead and, in a fit of rage, attacks Vaughn. During the struggle, some snow shifts, revealing a gap that leads to the surface above them. They realize they must try to send something through the gap to signal their rescuers. Vaughn, in desperation, collects some of Tom's blood in a bag and sends it up the gap, where it explodes onto the snow above. Peter and Monique see the blood and drop a warning note into the gap, alerting them to the danger of another explosion. They prepare to pour some nitroglycerin into the gap and set off a detonator. When the explosion occurs, it widens the crevice, allowing them to set up a rope system to pull Annie to safety. She is nearly unconscious, and they struggle not to drop her. Just as they are about to lose their grip, Wick arrives and secures Peter and Monique, giving them the strength they need. Wick descends into the cave to confront Vaughn, who tries to attack him with an axe. In a tense moment, Wick almost falls but manages to save Vaughn, tying him to a safety rope. The team continues to pull Annie up, but their equipment starts to loosen, and they risk sliding into the crevice. In a split-second decision, Wick cuts the rope, sacrificing both himself and Vaughn, allowing the others to escape. Hours later, back at base camp, Monique tends to Annie's injuries. She shares a tender kiss with Peter before leaving him to reconcile with his sister. The story ends with Peter paying his respects to those lost on two, Montgomery Wick and his wife, Kareem and Allie, Tom, Malcolm, and Cyril. The film closes on a somber note, reminding us of the incredible risks faced by those who dare to conquer the world's highest peaks.